I invite you to the observance of a Holy Lent. Those words are from the Ash Wednesday liturgy, and I think they are some of the most overlooked and underutilized words in all of our prayer book tradition. I invite you to the observance of a Holy Lent. Lent brings different meanings for different people. For some, Lent is a season that makes people want to run as far away from it as possible. This is due to perhaps experiences in the past that presented Lent as an oppressive time, a time where we are to be sorely hindered and reminded of our sins and our brokenness with God. But Lent is actually an intense time of preparation, healthy preparation, that yes, while an aspect of Lent is to note those areas of our lives that separate us from God, or where in our lives we are separate from God, it's not to dwell in that and go, oh, woe is me, there's nothing I can do about it. Lent is the season that reminds us that there is something that can be done and has been done about it. And we see that beginning and are reminded of that beginning at Easter. Lent draws its name from an Anglo-Saxon word that means lengthening, and it coincides with the time of the year when the days are growing longer and the light of creation grows brighter out of the depths of winter. Lent is bookended by two major moments, I think, that highlight the particular nature of Lent for this year. On Sunday, we will begin our Lenten journey, and we will be reminded, as we are every year, of the temptation of Christ in the wilderness. Coming up from the waters of baptism, the Spirit leads Jesus into the wilderness, and in the wilderness, he is confronted with all of the joys, all of the sorrows, all of the pain, all of the temptation that this world can bring. In the wilderness, Jesus is tempted to use his power, to use the creative power of God, to take himself out of this world. He was hungry. The tempter whispered, "Turn these, feed yourself." The tempter showed him all the power of the world and said, "This could be yours if you claim it." You see, while wrestling in the wilderness, Jesus was confronted with all of the brokenness of the world, all of the invitations the world can give us to fame, to glory, to power. But yet Jesus was in that wilderness. And though he had to wrestle with those, he was able to walk out of the wilderness. There's a powerful picture, work of art that I'll be sharing on the first Sunday of Lent. It's by Ivan Kremskoy. A picture of Jesus sitting in the desert on a rock in a deserted wilderness. And you can see all the anguish and the pondering and the wrestling going on in his face as he sits there. That's the artist's impression. What it must have been like to be tempted. Tempted in our thoughts, tempted in the voices that seek to influence us, tempted alone and yet not alone. And Jesus gets up and leaves that wilderness, and for the next 3 years sets in motion an example of a life that can change, that did change, has changed, continues to change our world. And not just our world, but ourselves. That's the image that begins Lent. The image of wrestling with the world. The image of quiet contemplation. the image of wilderness. The image that ends Lent is a similar image of desolation, a similar instance of quiet. We encounter that on Good Friday and Holy Saturday. The desolation of the tomb, the quietness of the garden in which the tomb was located, the anguish that we witness outside the tomb as the mourners of Jesus place the body in the tomb, the uncertainty of that Holy Saturday. Then comes Sunday. And just as Jesus walked out of the wilderness, the risen Christ walks out of that tomb bearing the scars of the world, but alive and bearing the glory of God. That's what Lent accomplishes for us, is that journey through the anguish, through the anxiety, through the frustration of the world. That's what Lent accomplishes for us, the journey with ourselves, with God, seeking to find and understand what God would have us to do, seeking to note and live into the truth that God is with us throughout the temptations of the world, throughout the hardships of the world, throughout the brokenness of the world. And we need that yearly reminder of Lent, so that as we walk from the cross on Good Friday to the tomb into Holy Saturday, and we wait, knowing that just as we have been walking through Lent, just as we have walked out of the wilderness with Christ, walk with Christ in the wilderness, we too walk with Christ out of that empty tomb, out of that tomb that could not hold the God that creates all, the God that restores all, the God who through Christ and with the agency of the Spirit does the same today as well. Therefore, I invite you to the observance of a Holy Lent. The resources are available as to how we, in these different and challenging times, how we at St. Andrew's are entering into this season of Lent. Look for that information, from weekly Bible studies in the morning to book studies in the evening to opportunities to walk the stations of the cross on your own in our parish, to the regular beat of the Sunday services. A Holy Lent is a hard Lent, but a Holy Lent is a reassuring Lent that reminds us that Lent is just one season of the church. And it is the season of the church that precedes one of the greatest seasons of the church, when we are reminded, as we will sing on that Easter Sunday, death is conquered, we are free. We realize that in the observance of a Holy Lent.